for them. We tell them things like, oh, you're going to need this one day, or you're going to need this next year. Well, our kids are smart. They know we're lying. They're saying to themselves, I ain't going to never need this. Never, ever in my life am I going to need this stuff you doing. We need to be able to teach kids the kinds of things that help them solve real life problems. So the ability to read and write and to compute, to engage in science, to look back in history, all ought to be focused towards solving real life problems in a democratic society. Now, that's the work that culturally relevant pedagogy has always been about. But I would say that over the last few years, I've been really engaged with the incorporation of youth culture. So I've been teaching classes on hip hop and education, and I know people are sitting there going, what? With all that gray hair in her head? Yeah, I've been teaching hip hop. I've been teaching history of hip hop. I've been teaching the relationship between hip hop and social change. Because what I'm learning is students are deeply engaged in youth culture. And it's that youth culture that got them out in the streets this summer. And it's the, in fact, when I get off from you, I will be going to a Twitter conversation called hashtag Hip Hop Ed. We meet every Tuesday night. And I think this week we are talking about Jeff Chang's new edition of his classic book, Can't Stop, Won't Stop, which actually does lay out the entire history of hip hop. So if we're not going to engage in youth culture, we're going to miss the boat with our students. We're going to keep on, like I said, giving them this sort of 19th century education that is not really useful in a 21st century world. The challenge, of course, is that we're just so used to doing what we've been doing. I've been calling for, and actually wrote an article last month, got published in Equity and Excellence in Education, called I'm Here for the Hard Reset. I use the metaphor of a reset. Just like, all of you have mobile devices, have telephones, and you know that sometimes they don't do what you want them to do. And there are some things that you might try. So you might shut it down and reboot it and see if that fixes it. If that doesn't work, then what you might do is take out the SIM card. Maybe you kind of blow it off, see if there's dust on it, and you put that in. If that doesn't work, you might take out the battery, make sure that the battery contacts are good and clean. If that doesn't work, you might go online, look for a tech support group, see if they have anything to tell you. If that doesn't work, then you finally say, I better take it back to the store. So whether you end up at the Apple store or the Samsung store, or whether it's your provider, T-Mobile or Verizon, whoever, you go back to that store and somebody down there is likely to tell you, I think what you really need is a hard reset. Well, that's something that most people don't want to hear, because if you haven't backed that phone up, when they do the hard reset, you're going to lose all your contacts, you're going to lose your pictures, you're going to be mad. Some of y'all playing these little games on there, Candy Crush or whatever, that might be gone too, I don't know. But what you're going to get back, excuse me, is a device that looks a lot like it looked when it came from the factory. So that's what I'm saying has to happen in education and schooling. We need a hard reset. We need to stop doing what we've been doing, because what we've been doing is not working. And everybody agrees that it isn't working. And so I've been working with school districts and superintendents and principals and even teachers about ways that we can reset our education system, ways that people can do some experimental things. Yesterday, I had a conversation with the state science coordinators across the country. And one of the things that I've been telling them is I said, you guys need to step up and be at the forefront of a revised and reset education, because we are in such a technological, scientific community world. We're not in a world where people have to churn their own butter or, whatever else people used to do in the 1800s. We're in a world where our students can get information like that, that the devices that they hold in their hands can get them out in the world, finding out information at in an instant. So why are we spending all this time doing rudimentary stuff where what we should be doing is placing science at the center of the inquiry? And that doesn't mean you're not going to do reading and mathematics and social studies and art. It means that you're going to come at it from important scientific questions. So, for example, we've had this entire year to be in a COVID environment, a pandemic environment. There are so many good pieces of literature on pandemics. There's a book called Contagion. There's a book on the plague. I mean, there's all kinds of literature that you could be reading about. Well, how did people, in the literary world talk about this? In the case of social studies and history, which is actually my discipline, so I'm not pushing science as my discipline because it's not. In the case of social studies, we should have been talking about the 1918 pandemic because we went through this before. We had this experience before. This is not new to us. What lessons from history did we learn? There was a major study that looked at 3 cities, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, St. Louis, Missouri, and San Francisco, California. Philadelphia didn't do anything. No, we're not going to wear no masks. We're going to have, because remember, it's 1918, so it's right after World War I. We're going to have a big parade and celebrate the veterans and raise a lot of money for war bonds. That pandemic ran through Philadelphia like crazy because they didn't want to wear masks. San Francisco said, oh, well, yeah, we could try some masks, but the masks that they tried were gauze masks. So they didn't keep the influenza out of people's mouths and noses. So they also had a huge outbreak. Only St. Louis, who said, you got to stay home. And when you go out, you got to wear a very thick covering over your nose and mouth to avoid catching this flu. It was in St. Louis that they recovered sooner than any place else. So we have history that we should be looking at, and our students should be saying, well, why did we learn from that? Of course, on the world scene, our students can be studying things like the Black Plague. They can be studying the bubonic plague. We have had pandemics. And so from the social history, social science standpoint, there's plenty to study. From the math standpoint, you might finally get kids to understand the notion of exponential growth. Because I see kids sitting in classrooms and they see the little superscript, the 2 or the 3 over a number, and they manipulate it and they go through the algorithm, but they don't have a conceptual understanding of what that means. Well, what it means is that we started last February of 2020 with 2 cases. And now we're up to millions of cases. That's an exponential growth. There's so many things we can do to show how mathematics helps, how you can predict certain things will happen mathematically. And then, of course, in science, you want to talk about virology, how do viruses spread? You want to talk about what we do and don't know about this particular deadly virus. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that there's so many new ways we can begin to think about teaching our students and incorporating those things that the students themselves enjoy. I was in Baton Rouge a couple years ago, and it was right after Black Panther had come out. And I was working with a group of STEM teachers, and I said to them, how many of you have seen the film Black Panther? I would say about 80% of them had seen it. I said, well, if 80% of you have seen it, I bet you more than 90% of your students have seen it. How many of you have used Black Panther in your classroom? None of them. And I said, okay, well, let's pretend that I'm your teacher. We've all seen Black Panther. Let's take the acronym STEAM, not STEM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And then let's go back through the film and consider what are examples in that film that represent science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. We filled the whiteboard because everybody could remember, oh yeah, remember when Zori made that, the suit for him? That was really artistic because it was designed. Oh, but what about the technology in that? What about the engine? I mean, they went on and on and on. I said, now, if you can be excited about it, think about your students. Then I picked out I said, how many of you are chemistry teachers? So I would say maybe about eight or nine of them were chemistry teachers. I said, here's a wonderful prompt for you. If vibranium, which was sort of the magical element in Wakanda, was real, where would you place it on the periodic chart of elements? And they were like, oh man, that's good. I said, yeah, I know it's good. Because if a student can answer that for you, they actually understand that chart. But how do we typically teach that chart? Memorize it. Well, I will tell you that memorizing the chart is of no value. I memorized the chart in 1966, okay? The chart is different, okay? It don't stay the same. But if you know how the chart functions, which is what this exercise in, playing as if vibranium were real, if you understand that, then you understand the chart. Memorizing the chart is of no value. It's like memorizing a list of presidents. That is of no value. You have to understand these presidents in their context. You have to understand how certain people get elected and certain people don't. So I feel like I'm just kind of rambling, talking on and on. I've been going for about a half hour. I want to stop and answer the questions that you may have about some of the ideas that I've suggested.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ladson-Billings, for your wonderful intro to get us started with tonight's conversation. We truly appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be with us tonight with the faculty and staff and students of the Division of Education. I know Alyssa Cross, you have a question. Would you like to ask your question at this time?
Yes, ma'am. Hi, my name is Alyssa Cross, and I'm a senior elementary education major. And soon I will be a first-year teacher. So my question is, what advice would you give first-year teachers about using the new CPR in the new environment? I know, like, as a first-year teacher, you're just coming in, so you may have a lot of influences. So it may be challenging to use new things. So what advice do you have for first-year teachers?
Excellent question. And I'm going to give you the advice I give my own first year folks here at the University of Wisconsin. No matter how good you've been in the program, no matter what your grade point average is, you can have straight A's. Your cooperating teacher can say you was the best thing since sliced bread, that everything you did in the classroom was right. No matter what all of that stuff is, when you hit that classroom, you'll be a beginner. And there's nothing you can do to change that. You'll be a beginner. So what I'm saying is give yourself some space and grace to make mistakes, because you're going to make them. You are going to make mistakes. In terms of maybe your excitement and encouragement to use culturally relevant pedagogy, what I would say is try to do it in one area. Don't try to go in there, oh, we're going to revamp the curriculum, we're going to change everything, because they're not going to listen to you. They're going to say, you just got here. You brand new. What you mean? You're going to tell us that? No. But you might try something that is a strength for you. You said you're in elementary, so a lot of elementary focuses on reading. Well, wouldn't it be great if you began to amass a whole lot of science knowledge for kids to read, so they could ask really good questions about the world around them? A woman who was my mentor, who was a retired professor at Ohio State University, she was my mentor when I went to Morgan State in Baltimore, named Rudine Sims Bishop. very well known in children and young adults literature. She said, the literature should provide our students with mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Mirrors to see themselves, windows to see out and see a broader world, but sliding glass doors to let them go between those two places. So again, thinking about the pandemic, one of the people who was in the forefront of the vaccine team is a Black woman. Wow. Wonder if we could find something to read about her and learn about her. Right? So that's it's those sort of subtle and slight shifts that you can begin, excuse me, and not just get sucked into the regime that is in place. Not saying that you're trying to go in and subvert them, but you do want to try some things to, not only excite students, but to keep you motivated. So don't try to change it all, because you have your hands full just trying to learn the rules. You won't even know where the supply cabinet is. So, certain things you'll have to be patient around. But again, as I said in the beginning, you'll be a beginner. So give yourself that space and grace to begin.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa, for your question. We have Haley Clark. You have a question?
Yes. I know that you're very passionate about what you're doing about education and the evolution of education and the evolving of education. I was just wondering what defining moment made you decide that you wanted to advocate for education and to become an educator.
Thank you, Haley. My answer is going to disappoint a lot of you people who have always wanted to be teachers, because I didn't. I wanted to be a writer. I love writing. But, I come from a family that's a working class family. They worked hard for me to go to college. There was no way I could just come home at the end of graduation and go upstairs to my bedroom and tell these people, oh, I'm a writer now. That my mother would tell me right away, look, you better go somewhere where you get a check, okay? And you get some insurance. So two things I loved writing and I loved history. So I was a history major because I really did love history. And one of my classmates said, and I kept saying, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I said, because I ain't got no job. I ain't thinking, what can I do with this? And so one of my classmates said, well, you could be a social studies, a history teacher. And I'm like, really? And she said, yeah, go over there and talk to them. They'll tell you what credit you need to take in education. They're going to make you do some student teaching and you can pull all that together. So I just kind of went to teaching because, it made sense for what I had studied. It was not until I got into the classroom with those students, and I started with middle school students, so I didn't start with an easy group, but I fell in love with it by doing it. I fell in love with it because it's like every day was new. It was different. It was exciting. I have friends who had jobs in corporate America and they hated it because they just did the same thing over and over. I had one of my friends that stayed on and even went to law school, but she left after a couple of years. She said, just too boring. She said, you don't really, you look on TV and you see these lawyers and they look all exciting like they're doing stuff. She said, that's not what you do. Unless you end up being a public defender or in the, in the DA's office, you just do billable hours. You sit in the library all day because you're new. So I learned that of the various professions that people were engaged in, teaching was one that had some autonomy. I got to do things that I wanted to do, but it also was still a learning profession. So even though I had a degree and I was a teacher, it put me in a place to continue to learn. So that's where my passion came from actually doing it.
Okay, thanks, Haley, for your question. Jamal Davis, I think you have a question that you would like to share.
Oh yeah, okay. So when you were talking about Ms. Billings, like when you're talking about involving like different things like hip hop history and stuff like that, and then you started talking about how like thinking about the recent Black Panther movie and such, like talking how that would work. You sort of answered it halfway with how you said, "Oh, think about how vibranium would fit into the periodic table, or think about the steam and all throughout the movie and such like that." And like the question was like, how would including stuff more recent things in youth culture or things that have been introduced to the culture itself into the education and how that would fit into a curriculum.
So I have a student, a former student by the name of Elijah Furquan. Elijah is a spoken word artist, but he's also interested in science. So we have actually a program here at the university called First Wave. It's probably the only hip hop arts scholar program. We just like our football and basketball coaches go out there looking for athletes, we go out looking for hip hop artists. And then we try to convince them that they should come to Wisconsin because we'll nurture that. So and they have to perform. I mean, that's part of their scholarship is they have 2 public performances. They perform a lot more than I wish they would because I feel like we exploit them. We won a lot of awards. But they have to take a subject matter that we offer. We don't offer a degree in hip hop, right? But Elijah was very clear. He is very interested in the environment. So he has this wonderful piece that he'd done for his audition tape called Extreme Heat, which talks about how global warming was impacting Milwaukee and particularly Milwaukee's inner city. And when we saw that, we were like, that's just the kind of kid we want. Let's get this kid. And so we convinced him to come. He got his, he got his scholarship award. He performed like he was supposed to, but he studied environmental sciences. So today, Elijah is like 27 years old. He still does spoken word gigs on weekends, but his profession, he's an environmental scientist. So we were able to merge his interests in both sort of spoken word and hip hop with environmental sciences in a way that I think if all you said to him was, "Oh no, you just got to study the science," we didn't do that. We said, how does studying the science, how would you incorporate it in the spoken word stuff that you love to do? So that's the kind of things that we keep trying to do. And we also try to do, I know in my classes, the students get a variety of ways to be evaluated. Everything is not a pencil and paper test. Everything is not write a term paper. Sometimes it's a performance. Sometimes it's a spoken word piece. I have another student by the name of Jonathan Williams. And Jonathan did an incredible spoken word piece for me called A System Not Meant for Me, where he describes all the bad things that happened to him in education. Got to high school, he didn't even go to school. He missed 102 days in his freshman year. I mean, it's an amazing piece about how he tried to cope with the education system, but it was an integration of the ideas that he had learned in my class on the class is called Pedagogy, Performance, and Culture. And we talk a lot about inequity. He submitted that piece for his final grade. It was magnificent. He got an A, but more than that, he submitted it for a national contest, the Raise Up Foundation, which is designed to try to help kids not drop out of school. He won the national contest in his presentation of that. So I'm trying to get them out of thinking, oh, everything you do is just to get a grade. No, what you do should have a bigger purpose. You should be saying, okay, where can I use this? What problem does this help solve? So that's the kind of things that we've been trying to do to sort of revamp the curriculum.
Oh, no, okay. Well, yeah, that sounds really good.
Thanks so much. That was awesome. We have any more questions? I think Akia Sherrod, you have a question?
Yes. My question was, is discipline in terms of cultural responsiveness necessary just as much as the approach to teaching?
When you say discipline, tell me what you mean?
I mean, as far as the expectations for the students or them just understanding what's, I guess, expected of them within the classroom.
Well, it's really interesting, and I've had this debate with colleagues in schools where they give this whole list of what they expect of the students. And so once I just said to them, I said, y'all are telling everybody what the students have to do. They got to bring their supplies. They got to be on time. They got to be there. I said, what are you going to do? Where is the statement about what you will do? And they're like, huh? I said, I don't talk to students like that, and I don't talk to their families like that. What I say to them is, number one, I am so excited that your student is in my class. I'm tickled pink that they are going to be a member of the class. Number two, here are the things you can expect of me this year. So I lay out what I'm committed to. I'm gonna be there. I'm not a teacher to just take off any old day. I will be there each and every day. Number two, you can reach me. Here's how you reach me. Our class has an open door. If you want to come in and see what we're doing. Number three, you should expect a phone call from me early in the semester. Not because your child will have done anything wrong, but because I just want to reach out and connect with you. And I dedicate the first month to every, like Monday through Thursday, making about 3 or 4 phone calls just to make sure I just connect with folks to say, I'm your child's social studies teacher. I'm excited to have them this year. Any question? And most of those parents have said to me, I never had a teacher call me with anything other than bad news about my kid. Thank you. But what that also did say to the parent is, this person is invested in my child. So if she does have to call with some mess, I'm gonna believe her, because she started out so positive and wanting things to happen. So what did you do? So for me, the discipline, the discipline system is upside down. It's designed to kick our kids out of school. It's designed to start them on the first step of that pipeline to prison. And in fact, how do I know that? I actually give a commencement address at our local county prison. That warden is very big on education. And so if students will complete their GED or their high school equivalency, or even a certificate in something like agriculture or horticulture, every 9 to 12 weeks, he has a commencement. And the inmates come in, they have on caps and gowns. They have family members come. They always have a speaker. They get awarded their certificates. They have some cookies and punch or something like that. But he's trying to encourage them to do something more than just, pump iron and have gang affiliations there. Well, I've given that commencement address twice. And each time I start with the same question. Raise your hand if you were ever suspended in anywhere from kindergarten through 12th grade. And can I tell you that both times every single member of that group was suspended? So what that tells me is that the people in my field are complicit. We're the ones starting them along this road. So I work to, I have a very high bar before I will put a student out. I'm not going to put you out because you have your head down. Okay. I might ask what's going on. Are you working? You working late? Why are you staying up late? Are you tired? Are you confused about what we're doing? But just putting them out because they're tired. Okay. They're adolescents. We know they don't get enough sleep. So my high bar is, you're not getting put out of my class unless what you are doing is a danger to yourself or other people. But what? Because you are quote disrespectful, because you rolled your eyes. Let me tell you something. When they turn 13, they start rolling their eyes. They can't help themselves. It's called being an adolescent. And if I'm gonna be the adult in the room, I got to deal with that. Now, part of my ability to deal with that is that I have 4 kids and 5 grandchildren. I done seen 9 sets of eyes roll. Trust me. It's not the end of the world. So at most, I'm very reluctant to do things that push kids out. My strategy is to bring them closer in. They don't love it. And what I mean by that is I've had instances where instead of having a kid sent out of the room, my suspension with them, because when we suspend them, then they go home for a little holiday, but they aren't learning anything. So my strategy has been that when I want to quote suspend you, you're going to spend more time in school, not less time in school. I'm actually going to come by and pick you up. Oh, you're going to spring your breaks with me. Oh, you and I are having lunch together. That's the worst part because their friends be like, man, what's she doing here? I'm like, tell them why we're together. And you're going to be with me after school. And then I'm going to take you home and I probably don't get home, not going to leave till 5. So you probably started your day at 7:30 and you're going to end it at 5 o'clock. You're going to spend all this time with me. By 2 days of this, oh, you don't want to be bothered with me no more. So you're not going to be included, committing infractions, but you will not have lost any time in school. And I tell them over and over, if I didn't love you, I wouldn't do this to you. I wouldn't be bothered with you, but I'm invested in you. Our kids don't hear enough people saying to them, I'm invested in you. What happens to you matters. So when folks say discipline, I'm always wondering, what are we talking being punitive? Or are we thinking, this is how I want to make sure that I manage a classroom? And I'll go back to, oh gosh, I forgot who I just spoke to who was going to be a new teacher. You're not going to get this right. You're not going to get it right in the beginning, just like you won't get it right as a new parent. You're going to make mistakes. You get better as you go along. And so again, that's space and grace. You ought to be learning enough about adolescent and childhood development to know that certain things don't make sense. You are dealing with young people who don't have a fully developed frontal lobe, so their ability to evaluate and use judgment is limited. It's not their fault. 13-year-olds can only make 13-year-old decisions. They can't make an 18-year-old decision, try as they might, even though we keep placing our kids in adult situations because maybe the adults around them aren't doing their job. But the truth of the matter is developmentally, our kids are where they are. They're gonna make stupid mistakes. Our job as caring adults is to minimize the likelihood that the mistakes they make will be life altering. So let me give you an example. Again, you're 13 and you telling me you're not taking algebra. Oh no, that's not your decision to make. You ain't never took algebra, so you don't even know what it is. I'm the adult. I know what algebra does for you in terms of opening up your pathways. So no, you don't get to make that decision. You get to decide whether you're going to wear that blue shirt or that yellow shirt. That's what you get to decide. I get to decide what the curriculum is that you should engage in so that you have more opportunities. So, I don't see discipline as separate from the curriculum or teaching in any way. We can do a lot of stupid stuff that make classrooms harder to manage, and kids will take advantage of that. But we can't be mad at them for being kids. And that's often what happens, that people get mad because kids are responding the way kids do. And, finally, let me just say, lighten up a little bit. Have some fun. There's not that many jobs that you can have this much fun in. If you don't want to have no fun, then just go work at Walmart. There ain't no fun over there, But if you're going to be with young people and they have the potential to change the world, oh my God, how much more fun could that be? So it's an honor, it's a privilege to do it. And, I want to make sure you do it with some joy.
Thank you so much, students. I know we have questions that are coming in, but our time is winding down and we have to bring this virtual session to an end, but I don't know what to say. You have truly enlightened me. I'm so glad that you took the time out to be with us today and that you invested in us at Tougaloo College, and truly appreciate that. And I guess a round of applause. Thank you so much. Great information. I feel like everything that you said, it hit home, and I can relate through my years of teaching in K-12 and teaching in higher ed. So I truly understand. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Moss, for putting all of this together for the faculty and staff and the Division of Education. I truly appreciate you and appreciate your service to the division. Again, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'll just let you know that one of my dearest friends who passed away a couple years ago at the age of 101 is a graduate of Tougaloo.
Wow.
And she's a very, very special woman. So I'm honored to have been invited.
Thank you. And we do look forward to